All right, we are here with no new oil. And I've got the first one here, which is the one that made the title. Swiss Re is a reinsurer, the world's second biggest reinsurer. So I guess insurance companies also buy insurance from reinsurers. I don't really know exactly how it works, but they have decided they are not going to insure any more new oil and gas projects. And they want to get they want to have half of all their overall oil and gas premiums to come from companies aligned with net zero carbon by 2025. And by 2030, all clients in the sector should have done so, something like that. So they've got anyway, I'm glad to see it. We need to stop using oil and gas as soon as possible. And I'm glad to see the Swiss leading on this. I expect the United States to be pretty far behind, depending on whether Trump wins again, because Trump thinks global warming is a hoax and we should just ignore it. And I guess but we'll see. At least the Swiss are leading the charge.
Well, the strongest argument for moving away from fossil fuels has nothing to do with the environment. I mean, yeah, the environment is great and everything, but fossil fuels put us at risk in terms of international politics. So when we rely on other countries for like oil and our energy supplies, we lose our independence essentially, right? So, and we have to start making deals with authoritarian regimes and.
Well, but that's because we don't generate it here, which we could as long as we're willing to just do a lot more fracking. And that's what Joe Manchin wants to do. And that's what a lot of Republicans are pushing for now.
I mean, we're doing a lot of domestic oil production right now. I mean, unfortunately, Joe Biden has really opened up the floodgates for domestic oil production, and that's still not enough, as we can see from the Republicans who are asking for more. And it's
so this is a very crucial time.
Yeah, but like I said, it's domestic security. I think is the greatest issue we really need to worry about when we're talking about oil and our energy supplies, and why we should be moving towards renewable energy sources that we can produce at home.
Yeah, and I think the next 3 to 5, I'm more concerned about the climate really, because the politics come and go, but the next 3 to 5 years are really going to make a decision that will affect future generations a lot.
Well, there you go, thinking about the kids again and future generations and thinking about what's right and wrong.
I know I'm out of my lane anyway. All right. And you've got the deepfakes.
Deepfakes, yeah, I thought this was really interesting. So NPR has an article written by Bobby Allen, and it's talking about how there was a Zelensky deepfake apparently put out by the Russians, although we don't really know who did it. I mean, I don't know why anyone else would do it, but essentially, Zelensky appears. I mean, this is a deep fake. Okay, this is all fake, but it appears this has been digitally altered to make him say things like, "Oh, we should surrender to the Russians, and the Russians are right," and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this is the first example of militarized deepfakes that I've seen, where they took a political leader and they made him say something to, as part of a misinformation campaign, specifically regarding a, conflict zone. And, that's what people were sort of worried about when deepfakes first cropped up a few years ago, that, oh, this could be leveraged by disinformation campaigns by governments. And here it is, the first example of it. Now, I do want to say that apparently the deepfake is pretty bad. Like you can kind of tell it's fake. And it's probably done very quickly and cheaply. And this is the first one out there. But of course, as time goes on, it'll get more and more difficult to figure out what is real and what is not. And especially when you're dealing with the fog of war, which is something I really didn't think about that much when deepfakes first cropped up. But now that we've seen Ukraine and we're sort of dealing with the fog of war right now, it gets really easy to throw out misinformation. And that is apparently what is going to be happening moving forward, is that people are just going to doctor up videos of foreign leaders to sell you on lies.
Yeah, well, It'll be interesting to see how much difference it makes. People have been talking about this for 5 years and it had nothing much has come of it. The thing I think that has been proven over the last 5 years is that you don't need deep fakes. You don't need evidence. You can just lie and people will just believe the lies.
Yep.
So, but maybe it would help push things. Another tool that could be used for propaganda. So people are trying to penetrate inside Russia. Now, Russia has blocked all the news agencies, blocked Facebook, blocked Twitter, and so on. So people are finding other ways to punch through. Just like back in the days of the Cold War, they're now distributing news. BBC is sending in voice from the outside by shortwave over Tor and other offering VPN services to Russians. And people are hacking in, and there are unofficial sources that have set up pages you can go to. BBC is also distributing over Telegram, but you can also go to a page and it will pop up for you a text of some random Russian inside there, and you can send them a text. They'll even give you Russian text to copy and paste in, so you can start conversations with Russians one by one to try to get the news into them. It's an interesting attempt to penetrate the wall. And I suppose this is probably why Russia is working harder to completely remove themselves from the internet. They announced a few weeks ago that all Russian websites are required to copy all their resources to local servers. And I think they want to totally disconnect from the internet to try to stop this information from coming in. And we'll see what happens. But at the moment, they're still connected to the internet. They're even connected directly to people outside Russia over Telegram. And I would imagine it won't be long before Putin turns that stuff off, especially after his latest speech, which seemed to be completely translated from Stalin. And Stalin has been his hero. And, you know, Stalin's main activity was to murder Russians. And that's what Putin seems to be moving towards, is just starting them a purge of inside Russia, purging anyone that fails to support his imperialist ambitions. So we'll see, but it's the Iron Curtain falling very fast, right back to the Cold War and maybe back even further.
Right, and at least it doesn't sound like Russia is going to be in a position to be much of a threat, though, to the rest of the world.
Not direct, well, only because of the nukes.
I mean, they do have nukes.
Well, that actually remains to be seen. From the looks of their tanks, I highly doubt they've been maintaining their nukes. I wouldn't be surprised if they won't actually fire and they won't actually go.
Right.
But they might have nukes, and that's holding us back a lot right now.
Right, but in terms of, I mean, the economic sanctions alone have just put Russia at such a disadvantage. I don't think they can recover. I mean, if they want to continue down this path. I mean, if they just said, hey, you know, we're done, you know, Putin's gone, whatever. I mean, they could, you know, open up the floodgates to their economy again, get everything going and recover really quickly. But as long as you know, Putin goes down this path, it's looking like Russia is going to become the next North Korea.
Oh, it is.
But don't take, I'm not a political expert. I'm just.
Well, no, but I think he took an irrevocable step last week when he nationalized the airplanes. He just seized 500 airplanes owned by foreigners and said, we're just taking them and we're going to use them. And that's what China did under Mao. Once you start nationalizing Russian foreign assets, then nobody dares invest in your country anymore. There's no point building a factory or anything in Russia if the government's just going to steal it from you. And that's what he has begun to do. Mm-hmm. And that is the kind of thing, even if he was to be removed tomorrow, nobody would trust the Russians for another 10 years. It's sort of like what's happened to the United States. Our European allies, that's why they're beefing up their internal NATO spending. They know they cannot count on the United States. We almost pulled out of NATO before, and in 2 years, we may put Trump back in and pull out of NATO. So they know we can no longer be trusted as an ally. Yeah. Anyway, so it's, but anyway, right now, NATO is stronger than ever. Putin has accomplished the exact opposite of his stated goals.
Yep.
Anyway, so you've got the data center in Finland.
Yeah, so we all know Microsoft is full of hot air, but now they're using that hot air for good. Specifically, they're using it to warm homes in Finland. So Tech Explorer has an article talking about how Microsoft's data center in Finland is using its excess heat very creatively. So instead of just letting it go to waste, they're piping it into people's homes. Now, you may not know this, but Finland gets pretty cold. And so this is a creative way of sort of recycling wasted power. So like nothing really goes to waste. So essentially, you know, I've seen at like, not Target, but Costco, if you go to their like space heater section, they'll say things like, this is like 98% efficient space heater or whatever. And that never made sense to me because all space heaters are 100% efficient. All wasted energy just gets turned into heat.
Well, some of it actually goes to degrade the metal components, but only a tiny fraction.
Right. Only, okay, yeah. So it's more like 99 point,
Yeah.
But all wasted, yeah. So all wasted energy just turns into heat, which is the point of the space heater. So they're all basically 100% efficient. It just takes a lot of power to heat up your home. That's the only issue. And so when Microsoft is then piping the excess heat from the computers into people's homes, that just makes their data center almost, I mean, there's going to be some loss as it goes through the pipes and whatever, but it makes their energy efficiency almost 100%, maybe like 95%, because like I said, all the wasted heat is now going into people's home and being used. So, I mean, that is a great idea. I think that's wonderful that Microsoft is using their hot air for good reasons this time.
Yeah. Now this part that it strikes me is this must mean that the data center must be physically near the home because you can't just pipe that water too far.
Right. It is apparently pretty. It's in the Helsinki region, I think. But it will transfer heat to about 250,000 homes, I believe. So a good amount.
How can you possibly move hot water that far?
It's just around the Helsinki area. I mean, it's like 900 kilometers.
900 kilometers. You put hot
of
water
underground pipes.
You put hot water in a pipe, and 900 kilometers later, I'm supposed to believe it's still hot. I have a physics problem here.
I mean, but let's just pretend it works.
Yes. All right. Well, then I got my alma mater, the FTC. And what they've been doing now, 3 cases, they previously do is if you do something illegal, they will punish you and make you pay money and perhaps even shut down your business. But now they're making you destroy your data because the modern thing is, this, for example, is what Weight Watchers did. Weight Watchers got people to install an app and keep track of what you're eating. And then they got kids to install the app. And then without telling them, they recorded all the data and used it to train an AI and what kind of food to feed kids. And this was all completely illegal. So when the FTC busted them, they made them destroy the AI, losing the algorithm and losing the results of their data. And this is the 3rd time they've done that. They did it to Facebook in the marketing campaign that Bannon started, Cambridge Analytica. And they did it for a 3rd one. So this is now the modern punishment. It has now become one of their tools they'll use more often is to remove the ill-gotten gains that you achieved through illegal data collection by destroying the algorithm. So the shows the FTC, I think, updating their punishments to the modern world. And then the last one here is the new NASA rocket.
Yeah, the SLS is finally getting ready to take off. It has been wheeled out to its launch site over in Cape Canaveral. So The Verge has an article written by Lauren Grush talking about this. And it's also talking about the problems that the SLS had getting to where it is. So it was initially conceived back in the early 2010s. And it was supposed to be flight ready by about 2017. Now, I may not be an expert at math, but it seems like 2017 passed a long time ago. And so, what happened? Why was it so delayed? What were all the problems? And this would be a very interesting topic to deep dive into in like a year or two, once all the dust has settled and we have it flying and we're able to go back and kind of view it with 2020 spectacles. But a lot of it has to do with the politics of building rockets, particularly by the government, who wants to contract out to very specific people, specifically, people within certain states that, they want to bring money into that state or whatever. And there wasn't much competition, and the contract basically went straight to Boeing. And instead of incentivizing quick work, they sort of incentivized Boeing to sort of take their time, which, I mean, when you're talking about rockets and safety, I would rather it be delayed.
Well, but this is basically just a covert welfare program.
But right, yeah. So that's one of the big issues, is that, yeah, it is somewhat of a covert welfare program that went out to large corporations, though not to the most needy people. Now, I'm sure there were people that were employed that wouldn't otherwise be employed to work on this and stuff. But the other thing too, of course, is that NASA was given this big mission. So the SLS is basically like the modern Saturn V, right? This is going to be taking us back to the moon. This is the 21st century mega rocket. Okay, this is the bee's knees of rockets. And the problem is that Congress didn't increase NASA's budget to accommodate this at all. So instead of saying, oh, we're over budget, Congress said, well, deal with it. But back, of course, in the 1960s, when we were in the space race, when NASA was over budget, and these things often do go over budget, Congress said, okay, we'll just give you some more money to finish this project. So now you're stuck between the politics of building a rocket by the government and all these people wanting to, get money into their state or in their communities, but also the fact that people don't want to invest the kind of money necessary to support the creation of the world's greatest rocket ever created. So
this is the biggest?
I mean, in terms of size, I don't think it's bigger than the Saturn V, but it's comparable to the Saturn V. In terms of, in fact, I'd have to see the delta V. Let's compare that right now. Let's Google delta V. So for people who don't know, delta V is the change in velocity of a rocket, and that basically tells you how fast it can go, more or less, like how much
it can lift, right?
Well, yeah, kind of like how much it can, like, yeah. So Saturn V of the Saturn V is, let's see, delta.
These keyboards don't have a delta key.
They do not have a delta key. So the delta V, so the delta V of the Saturn V was about 18,000 meters per second. I think that's what it's saying. Yeah, about 18,000 meters per second. Delta V of SLS. I cannot find it. Oh no. Oh no, this has gone south pretty quickly. Delta V of SLS. Come on.
Classified.
It's classified, yeah.
Although when they fire it off, everybody will be able to see. Well, anyway, there is another thing I want to mention, which is you got this certification, which is just several beyond what I've got. So.
Oh, right. So on Monday or Tuesday, I should say, I wasn't at the podcast because I was busy getting the OSED, the Offensive Security Exploit Developer Certificate, which is sort of a new certificate about exploit development, which is fantastic. And that's all I have to say about it.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. I'm glad to see it. And it makes you a member of a rare little group of people that have achieved that, I think.
I mean, I imagine it's going to get more and more popular. One of the biggest problems of taking this test right now is that because very few people have taken it, I really had no idea what to expect going into this test. I was basically going in blind. Now that I know kind of what to expect and what they kind of wanted, if I were to take even a different test, but of the same content, I would have gone in much more confidently and been able to just been bam, 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 I'm done 100%. But because I really had no idea what I was getting into, what they were expecting, it was, you know, very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you made it. And I'd love to see some of my students get there.
Yes, and I will be talking to your class next month when you start Windows exploit development.
Yeah. So it'd be nice if any of them get there. That's far beyond what I teach in my class, but it's in the same direction.
It is not that much further. So one of the things that I'll be talking about that is very important for the OSCD that you should be adding to your class, and I can help you with this, is writing your own shellcode.
Oh, all right.
Which is not as hard as you would think,
Yeah.
but it does require some explanation.
Okay.
And writing your own shellcode can be absolutely fantastic when you're bypassing things like bad characters, and you're in very limited space. Because normally what happens is that when you use something like MSF Venom to generate your payload, the encoders work by sort of assuming the executables in writable memory. Now, this is not always the case. Sometimes you're going to use something like write process memory API, the write process memory API that throw your process in program memory, and you can't run the encoders. And there's nothing in MSF Venom that gets around these bad characters. And as far as I know, MSF Venom doesn't even have like an assembly output option where you can just grab the assembly of the code or whatever. Although I don't know. I have seen some tools that obfuscate, the payloads by working with the assembly, but it's not readily available. But if you of course have the assembly for the payload, you can just change out the bad characters or bad opcodes that are causing the bad characters, and not even have to worry about decoding it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, good.
So we'll cover that. And yeah, that's going to be the black magic of the that I'll be covering next month.
Good. All right. And well, I guess that's it for this one. And we'll be back on Tuesday.